Hello everyone, this is a hand-tied wefts tutorial. I know that a lot of people have questions about it, so I'm just going to do a quick little weft on this mannequin. I'm using my Velcro strips or Velcro patches to separate the hair. Neat parting is essential when doing this service. As you can see, I use the Velcro strips to keep it nice and straight. I match the color of the bead I'm using to the root of the hair. Clamp, clamp, clamp. Parting again. Making sure there are no crosshairs. And using my Dreamcatcher's Velcro strip once again to keep that parting nice and isolated and clean. It is essential that the partings remain clean. Crosshairs are painful. Crosshairs, spider webs, or flyaways, whatever you call them. When doing this service, they can be very uncomfortable if you're not sure to make sure that you separate and do neat partings. Speeding this up just a little bit here. The beads should be right next to each other, one after another. There should not be any space in between each bead. Checking for crosshairs, making sure that the part is nice and clean. Clamp, clamp, clamp. I clamp 3 times just to make certain that it is nice and secure. All those beads are nice and neat at the same level. I think I can add one more bead towards the end. At the edges, it is important that you don't see the beads. That is where you can have a dead giveaway about wearing extensions. You don't want it to be too close to the edge so it isn't visible to everyone else. And those beads, like I said, nice and secure at the same level near the root, not on top of the root, but close as you can get without it causing too much tension. And now we're going to go in and measure our wefts. As you can see, the weft is a little longer than what we have for beads. There will be leftover hair hanging off the edge, but I'm not going to cut it only because this is an example and this is a mannequin. I don't want to keep having to use new wefts for every example. So right there is where I would cut it. We're not going to do that today, so just letting you know in advance. I'm going to take out my needle now. Dreamcatchers did provide these really beautiful tools to use. The thread I'm using today is pink. It is example thread so that you can see the thread and I can see the thread easily. Generally, the thread is supposed to match the root of your hair, just like the beads are. But again, pink thread today for example's sake. So I'm using some clips to hold the wefts against the head while we are sewing. You can put the wefts in on the side, connecting it to the hair that you're clipping, or they can be clipped from the top. I did both there so you could see which one works for you. I personally like the side clip method better. I feel like it gives me some more security. So the first 3 stitches are lock stitches. They are very important. They act as anchors and ensure that the ends are flat and secure, so your hair, it won't move. The first 3 or so will be lock stitches, meaning that the thread will be wrapped around the needle before it is fully pulled through. So you'll see here, I'm wrapping it around 1, 2, and pulling it through. Some people do 2, some people do 3. And 1, 2, and pulling that through again. So like I said, the lock stitches are when the remaining part of the thread is wrapped around your needle to create basically a knot at the base, which again lets your hair be flat and secure. Every stitch after your first 3 or so lock stitches will be blanket stitches. A blanket stitch, unlike a lock stitch, the remaining part of the thread is not wrapped around the needle. It is wrapped behind the needle, and then the needle is pulled through like usual. It gives security, but obviously you don't need it to be anchored down like the ends of the hair are. I like to sew from underneath, bringing the needle from below the wefts. And some people like to sew from ahead, but from over the wefts, but my preference is from underneath. Now, as you can see, I'm going on either side of the beads that we had laid down before. So on the left side and on the right side of each bead, that is where I would stitch through. You'll be able to see in a little bit where each of those little blanket stitches are, and in between each stitch is a bead. So stitch on the left, bead, stitch on the right, bead, stitch on the left, bead, stitch on the right, there's a bead. Yeah, so in between each bead, there should be a stitch. It is imperative also to make sure that your thread remains neat and clean, meaning your thread should not be so long that it becomes tangled in itself. And your thread should not be so short that you have to add on more thread in the middle of it. It adds on time to your service, and it's just not necessary. It's better to have enough than not enough. And in this instance, it's better to have just enough than way too much, because that will just make the service more complicated than it needs to be. And here I'm anchored the side with a clip, and I'm going through because I'm doing my anchor stitches, my lock stitches, excuse me. So I like to slow down and take my time specifically on the ends to make sure the hair, it don't move. Notice there was a hair there. Anchor them ends, girl. And now we're going to do a nice little knot. Make it nice and tight. Flyaways, keep them out your way. The more you practice, the easier it'll get. And clip your ends of any excess hair. Excess hair. And there at the end is the leftover piece of weft that I told you about. Not bringing that all the way to the front, because that would be visible. So there it is. The weft is nice and neat. Nice and flat. This was a very relaxing thing for me to do before I had clients come in. Using clients as models is nice, but you can't get the camera up in there the way you would like. Because I'm more concerned about, talking to the client, chit-chatting, things of that nature. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. Please follow me on my socials at Made Up by Jasmine, Instagram Made Up by Jasmine, Venmo Made Up by Jasmine, and email madeupbyjasmine@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Take care.